Welcome to AI Unraveled, your daily forensic briefing at the intersection of business and artificial intelligence. It is Monday, April 6th, 2026. I'm your co-host, Anna. Before we begin our autopsy of the market, a quick reminder. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to AI Unraveled directly on Apple Podcasts so you can enjoy this strategic briefing and all our daily episodes completely ads-free. Today's episode is brought to you by Iuria and Jamgamind. When enterprise employees suffer from cognitive surrender, blindly trusting flawed AI outputs 73% of the time, governance is your only defense. Iuria provides the zero-trust sandboxing required to ensure your agents follow strict business rules, not hallucinations. And to navigate the regulatory and financial friction of the AI economy, Jamgamind delivers technical-grade audio forensics for the C-suite. Visit jamgamind.com. Today, we look at the infrastructure squeeze. OpenAI's CFO warns of a $200 billion cash burn. Nvidia strategically undercuts its best customers, and Anthropic forces power users to pay the true cost of compute. Let's look at the bottom line.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because in roughly 6 months, the leading artificial intelligence company in the world is projected to burn through $14 billion.
Right, which is just an unbelievable number.
Yeah, it's staggering. Meanwhile, fresh academic studies are showing that human workers using these exact systems are blindly accepting flawed, completely hallucinated AI logic, like 73% of the time.
73%. It's a massive failure point.
So, welcome to the new reality of artificial intelligence. You know, the magic trick is officially over, and today we're welcoming you to a brand new deep dive where we really have to look closely at the massive, unavoidable friction of reality.
Yeah, and it is a profound shift in the ecosystem. I mean, what we're witnessing today is the moment where these sky-high software valuations are just violently colliding with the physical limits of compute power.
Right, and the unforgiving discipline of capital markets.
Exactly. We are moving past the theoretical hype into an incredibly expensive physical reality.
Which is why today we are, putting on our hats. I'm stepping in as your forensic financial strategist, and you're taking the role of lead systems architect.
I'm ready for it. We've got a lot to cover.
We do. We have a really dense stack of sources for you today. Hot off the presses from April 6th, 2026, we are looking at leaked financial projections, heavily debated corporate policy blueprints, fresh academic research out of UPenn and MIT, and, well, some major structural fractures in the tech ecosystem.
What's fascinating here, I think, is that the overarching theme of these sources really requires a clinical, almost cynical autopsy of the current market. We're shifting from, look what this magical technology can do, to how on earth do we actually pay for the copper, the electricity, and the industrial cooling systems required to run it?
Yeah, who's paying the electric bill?
Exactly. And the first place that friction is destroying the old paradigm is, well, it's in the software as a service model.
Right, the SaaS model. I'm looking right at the Anthropic news here. They just booted third-party agent platforms, specifically tools like OpenClaw, off of their Claude flat-rate subscription plan.
Yeah, that was a huge move.
It's massive. Users now have to pay separately via API keys or metered usage add-ons. And Anthropic's Boris Cherny released a statement calling this a move towards serving customers sustainably long-term.
That's a very polite way to put it.
Right. But Peter Steinberger, the creator of OpenClaw, is furious. He's accusing Anthropic of basically copying popular agentic features into their own closed ecosystem and then just financially locking out the open source community.
Look, from a systems architect perspective, Anthropic's move wasn't just predictable. It was a matter of basic survival. We really have to unpack what inference actually costs here.
Okay, lay it out for us.
So when a standard user queries an AI, it's a single transaction. You ask a question, it answers. But agentic workflows fundamentally break the SaaS subscription model. Agents do not just prompt once.
Right, they loop.
Exactly. They operate in loops. They draft a piece of code, test it, encounter an error, query the model to analyze the error, rewrite the code, test it again, and they might do this 50 times in 3 seconds.
Wow. Okay, so this is like an all-you-can-eat buffet. A regular human customer brings a plate, sits down, and eats a single meal. But an agentic workflow is like pulling up a fleet of autonomous dump trucks to the buffet line, hauling away all the food, and expecting to still only pay, $20 a month.
That is exactly the physical reality of the situation. Every single time that agent loops, it is triggering physical events in a data center. GPUs are spinning up, they're drawing massive amounts of electricity, generating intense heat.
Which requires water to cool down.
Yes, industrial water cooling systems, just to stop the hardware from melting down. That physical cost scales linearly. So offering a flat-rate subscription model for software that can theoretically initiate infinite physical compute, it's a financial suicide pact.
Which perfectly bridges us to an even bigger financial hemorrhage. Because if Anthropic is suddenly sweating over the server costs of these agentic dump trucks, we really need to look at the absolute financial crater forming over at OpenAI.
Oh, the leaked numbers here are just staggering. Even for the most seasoned financial analysts, it's hard to process.
Yeah, we have details of a massive internal conflict between OpenAI's chief financial officer, Sarah Friar, and the CEO, Sam Altman. Altman is aggressively pushing for an initial public offering by Q4 of this year, 2026.
Yep.
But Friar is reportedly insisting they are nowhere near ready. And when you look at the brutal math, the picture is grim. Internal projections show a loss of roughly $14 billion for 2026.
$14 billion.
Against just $2 billion in monthly revenue. And the truly shocking part, the path to positive cash flow requires them to burn through more than $200 billion.
Let's deconstruct that capital burn rate for a second, because we lack a historical precedent for this. We've never seen a privately held company require $250 billion.
Basically the GDP of a small nation?
Literally.
Right.
Just to build the infrastructure necessary to reach baseline profitability. And the C-suite fracture you mentioned is the ultimate symptom of this panic. Sarah Friar, the person whose entire job is to manage the money, reportedly no longer reports directly to Sam Altman and is being excluded from key financial meetings.
Wow.
Meanwhile, investment banks like Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs have been, quietly retained.
And for decision makers navigating these massive capital burn rates and internal C-suite conflicts, DJAM provides technical-grade, human-verified audio forensics across finance and tech. Visit djamagamind.com.
Because when internal corporate chaos reaches this magnitude, the fallout inevitably spills into the public markets.
But I have to push back on the fundamental logic of this whole OpenAI strategy, though.
Go for it.
From a purely forensic financial standpoint, if you have a $200 billion hole to fill before you even glimpse profitability, how is an IPO legally or practically viable by Q4? To me, that doesn't look like a mature company going public.
No, not at all.
That looks like venture capitalists tapping out and desperately trying to offload an unsustainable burn rate onto retail investors.
Your assessment is entirely clinical. It's a desperate play for liquidity. There simply isn't enough private venture capital on the planet to sustain a $14 billion annual loss.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. The optics of taking a company public when it requires a $200 billion bridge to viability are toxic.
Right.
And this is where the strategy shifts.
How so?
When a company is facing a brutal, almost impossible IPO environment, they don't just iterate their software, they actively attempt to rewrite the legal landscape.
Which brings us to the policy blueprint that Sam Altman just dropped.
Exactly.
It's a 13-page document conspicuously released right in the middle of this IPO push, and it proposes heavily taxing automated labor. He wants this new AI tax to fund Social Security and S&AP programs, essentially giving everyday citizens a financial stake in AI wealth. He's also pushing for employers and unions to adopt a 4-day work week with no pay cuts, subsidized by this AI efficiency. I mean, on paper, it sounds like a utopian vision.
Well, if we connect this to the broader financial reality we just discussed, you have to view this blueprint through a lens of extreme skepticism.
Yeah, feels a bit off.
Why is a CEO suddenly demanding heavy, restrictive taxes on his own core product on the eve of a public offering? In corporate strategy, this is a textbook example of regulatory capture.
Okay, I want to make sure we're totally clear on that term for everyone listening. Are you saying the ultimate goal isn't philanthropy, but creating a financial moat?
Exactly that. By demanding that the government institute massive regulatory hurdles, compliance taxes, and oversight guardrails right now, OpenAI forces the entire industry to play by rules only a behemoth can afford.
Right. They can afford the lawyers.
Exactly. OpenAI already has billions in funding. They can hire armies of compliance lawyers and pay these automation taxes. But the small open source startup operating out of a garage trying to build a competitive model,
They're dead in the water.
they cannot afford the compliance department. It's pitching a regulatory tax as a societal benefit, when the mechanism is actively designed to suffocate their underfunded competitors.
And there is a glaring contradiction in our source stack that entirely validates that cynical view. An 18-month investigation by The New Yorker just revealed that while Altman was publicly touring the globe advocating for these government guardrails, he was actively, privately lobbying against those very same AI regulations.
Surprising, absolutely no one paying attention.
Right. Furthermore, while pushing this domestic tax for the people narrative, he was simultaneously pursuing billions in funding from Gulf autocracies and allegedly hiding a post-firing investigation that mysteriously produced no written report.
It perfectly illustrates the intense friction we're talking about today. You have a carefully constructed public narrative of shepherding humanity into the future, violently clashing with the private, cutthroat reality of securing capital at absolutely all costs just to feed the servers.
Seriously. The AI landscape right now feels less like a technological revolution and more like a high-stakes game of corporate musical chairs. Which reminds me, the AI landscape moves faster than a hallucinating LLM on a double espresso.
That it does.
Etienne has done the heavy lifting for the AI Unraveled community. Head over to djamjammind.com/toolkit for the AI Executive Toolkit. It's a hand-picked, forensic-vetted implementation stack featuring tools like Chatbase, 11 Labs, and Google Workspace, complete with exclusive listener perks to get your firm running at light speed.
And forensic vetting is absolutely critical right now, because while OpenAI tries to legislate a monopoly, the underlying hardware layer of the entire industry is fracturing.
Yes. Let's talk about Nvidia, because they are actively arming the resistance here. They just launched Nemotron 3 Super. Our sources detail this as a 120 billion parameter mixture of experts model with a massive 1 million token context window. And they've announced an even bigger version. Nemotron 3 Ultra is coming shortly. But the real story isn't the power of the AI. It's that Nvidia is completely open sourcing it. They are handing over the weights, the training data sets, and the recipes for free.
From an architectural standpoint, this is a masterstroke driven by 3 strategic pillars.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first is hardware-software co-design. If Nvidia builds their own frontier-level models, they don't have to wait for OpenAI to tell them what architecture the next generation of chips requires. They can optimize the hardware internally based on their own software demands.
That makes a ton of sense. And to translate the technical jargon from the sources, when they say mixture of experts, they mean the model doesn't use its entire brain for every question.
Right.
Think of it like a massive hospital. Instead of one general practitioner trying to diagnose everything, which takes massive computational energy, the AI routes your specific prompt to a highly specialized doctor subnetwork. It radically reduces the compute power needed.
That's a great way to visualize it. And that efficiency ties into NVIDIA's second pillar, letting 1,000 flowers bloom. By giving away highly efficient, incredibly powerful software, they are democratizing access. They're ensuring that thousands of smaller enterprises can rapidly build AI products. And what do all those new companies know? They need to buy or rent NVIDIA GPUs to run them.
Which brings us to the third pillar, and the one that connects directly back to our OpenAI autopsy.
Yes, the hedge against proprietary monopolies.
Yeah.
This is the absolute core of the strategy.
Wait, let me see if I'm tracking the logic here. If OpenAI's regulatory capture works, if they successfully legislate their competitors out of existence, they become the only buyer of GPUs left in the market.
Yep.
And in economics, a single buyer controls the pricing. So Nvidia is basically spending billions to give away the world's best software for free, entirely to ensure that OpenAI never gets big enough to dictate Nvidia's profit margins.
You've hit the nail on the head. NVIDIA is a hardware company. The AI model is just a byproduct to them. If the entire software ecosystem consolidates down to just Anthropic and OpenAI, NVIDIA loses its pricing leverage.
Wow.
By open sourcing a world-class model like Nemotron, they guarantee a fragmented, highly competitive, and diverse customer base. They are actively funding OpenAI's competition to protect their own hardware monopoly.
It's an incredibly ruthless chess move. So we have OpenAI and Nvidia locked in this high-stakes battle over the cost and control of the artificial brain. But there is a tragic irony deep in our source stack today.
There really is.
As these artificial brains get more complex and fiercely debated, the human brains actually operating them appear to be shutting down.
This represents the most profound friction of all. The system's architecture is scaling beautifully, but the human operator is proving to be a highly vulnerable failure point.
I want to look at this massive study just released by the University of Pennsylvania. They ran nearly 1,400 participants through 9,500 trials.
A huge sample size.
Massive. And they documented a terrifying psychological phenomenon they're officially calling cognitive surrender. The researchers found that users accepted unsound, completely flawed AI reasoning more than 73% of the time.
Unbelievable.
Let me repeat that because it's staggering. More than 7 times out of 10, when the AI hallucinated or used terrible logic, the human worker just went along with it. They only stepped in to overrule the machine 20% of the time.
And, if your employees are accepting flawed AI logic 73% of the time, you don't just have a software problem, you have a liability crisis. AIA provides the necessary zero-trust security posture management to ensure your agents follow strict corporate governance, overriding human cognitive surrender.
It truly is a crisis of human agency. The UPenn researchers noted that users are actively overriding their own intuition with what they called minimal friction or skepticism. And the most alarming part of the data, people with higher trust in AI combined with a lower need for cognition and fluid intelligence fell victim to this cognitive surrender the most.
We need to define fluid intelligence here because it's critical. It's the ability to reason, analyze new problems, and identify patterns on the fly, completely independent of acquired knowledge.
Right.
When a human outsources their executive function to an AI, they stop exercising that mental muscle. The synapses literally weaken.
Which aligns entirely with the recent warnings from within the industry itself. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei stated that deploying AI incorrectly could easily make people stupider by removing the struggle of learning.
He said the quiet part out loud.
He did, and we have the receipts to prove it. The source stack includes an MIT Media Lab study where test subjects were asked to evaluate SAT questions. The group that used ChatGPT consistently underperformed the group using no tools at all.
Wow.
And they didn't just fail the test. Researchers documented underperformance across neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels. We are empirically watching human cognition degrade in real time.
However, the UPenn researchers made a highly controversial counterargument that we have to mention.
Oh.
They posited that if an AI model is statistically superior at reasoning in the aggregate, deferring to the machine, even when it occasionally hallucinates, might actually be adaptive or optimal for a business seeking pure efficiency.
But that raises a massive practical question for any organization. Let's say an enterprise uses a large language model to draft a major legal contract or execute a complex financial trade.
Okay.
The AI hallucinates a completely unsound premise. The human operator, exhibiting that 73% cognitive surrender, just glazes over and clicks approve. When the lawsuit hits or the capital is lost, who holds the ultimate liability?
That is the multi-trillion-dollar legal question currently paralyzing corporate boardrooms.
Right.
The enterprise holds the ultimate liability, obviously, but they have incentivized and deployed workflows that systematically erode human oversight. In the pursuit of velocity, the line between human and machine agency hasn't just blurred, it has been completely erased.
And this friction we've been tracking today, the massive physical cost of compute, the desperate financial maneuvers, and this creeping human cognitive surrender, it's not isolated. It is cascading into every single corner of the tech ecosystem.
It creates a bleed-over effect. When the fundamental layers of a technology are built on friction, the end-user applications will inevitably fracture.
Take the App Store, for example. In Q1 of 2026, App Store submissions surged by 84% year over year. But this wasn't an organic renaissance of highly skilled coders.
Far from it.
Right. It was entirely driven by vibe coding. Tools like Claude Code and ChatGPT Codex allow essentially anyone to speak an app into existence. The AI compiles the natural language into code. The result was nearly 600,000 total submissions last year. But because of cognitive surrender, nobody is checking the code for efficiency or bugs. The marketplace is choking on derivative, low-quality apps that users are furious about.
It is the friction of infinite, frictionless generation colliding with a finite, easily exhausted consumer attention economy.
And at the same time, we're seeing the industry desperately trying to force these models to respect physical reality. There's a piece of this source stack that initially baffled me. Netflix research just open-sourced an AI framework called Void.
Yeah, VOID.
On the surface, the streaming company releasing a video editor didn't seem to fit our thesis. But looking closer, Void isn't a normal AI video editor, is it?
No, it is a fascinating attempt to ground neural networks in physics. Historically, if you used AI to erase an object in a video, it simply hallucinated pixels to paint over the background. It had no concept of the scene.
Right, it just guessed what was behind it.
Exactly. Void attempts to rewrite the actual physics. If a person is holding a balloon and you instruct the AI to erase the person, the model's physics engine calculates the loss of gravity and tension, and the balloon floats away.
That's crazy.
If you erase a foundational block in a stack, the blocks above it mathematically fall. It's a literal attempt to force an AI to simulate cause and effect, rather than just blindly generating pixels.
It's an incredible production tool, but it's a stark reminder that until right now, AI has operated completely divorced from the physical laws of our world.
Very true.
And finally, this friction is bleeding deeply into geopolitics and corporate surveillance. We have BrowserGate making headlines. LinkedIn is facing massive allegations of running hidden code to secretly scan over 6,000 browser extensions on users' computers.
Just incredibly invasive.
They are allegedly inferring users' religious beliefs, political leanings, and job-seeking activities, all while sniffing out competitors.
It's corporate paranoia leveraging AI to weaponize user data at an unprecedented scale.
And in the geopolitical sphere, Apple was just forced by the Chinese government to remove Jack Dorsey's decentralized app BitChat from the App Store. For those unfamiliar, BitChat operates on mesh networks. It bounces Bluetooth signals directly from phone to phone, completely bypassing cellular towers and the internet.
Which is very dangerous for an authoritarian regime.
Exactly. It is a powerful tool for social mobilization during government blackouts, which is exactly why the state demanded its removal.
That is the ultimate final friction. The rigid centralized control of a state apparatus attempting to maintain authority over decentralized peer-to-peer communication architectures.
It really is all connected. The physical heat of the servers, the hardware proxy wars, the erosion of human critical thinking, and the crackdowns by sovereign states.
We have language models burning $14 billion a year just to keep the lights on. We have tech CEOs proposing massive taxes on the automated labor they themselves are frantically building to bankrupt their rivals.
Yep.
And we have human workers willingly surrendering their intellect to the machine 73% of the time. The ultimate question for you to explore is this. In an enterprise where the agents execute the work, the models dictate the decisions, and the humans just blindly accept the output, well, who is actually steering the ship when the capital finally runs out?
That is a chilling but absolutely necessary thought to leave on. Thank you so much for joining us as we navigated the very real friction of reality today. Remember to keep questioning the outputs and keep that fluid intelligence sharp. Subscribe to AI Unraveled on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free.
That concludes our Forensic Business Rundown for April 6th. The strategic signal for today is the squeeze. The AI industry is transitioning from the honeymoon phase of unlimited venture capital into the brutal reality of unit economics. When Anthropic has to kick its most active users off its platform because the compute costs are bleeding them dry, the era of all-you-can-eat AI is over. When OpenAI's own CFO tells Wall Street that the company is going to burn $200 billion before breaking even, the IPO math changes completely. And Nvidia sees it all, which is why they are giving away frontier models for free, ensuring they don't end up a hardware hostage to a software monopoly. If you are going to survive this squeeze, you need the right tools. Look, the AI landscape moves faster than a hallucinating LLM on a double espresso, which is why I've done the heavy lifting for you. Stop scrolling through generic top 10 lists and head over to the AI Executive Toolkit at jamgamine.com/toolkit. I've handpicked and forensic vetted every tool on this list, from Chatbase and 11 Labs to Area and Google Workspace, to ensure they meet the rigorous standards of a professional and the high-stakes needs of the AI Unraveled community. Consider this your curated implementation stack to bridge the gap between raw innovation and professional-grade governance, complete with exclusive listener perks to get your firm running at light speed. This episode was made possible by Area and Jamgamind. Hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts to enjoy this briefing completely ads-free. I'm Anna. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.